So a quick word about the video which you saw. You saw an image of a man who was being thrown from the top of the third roof of a container. This man was presumed dead. But subsequently they found out, the authorities in Pakistan found out that he was not dead, and he had 2 fractured arms and a fracture in the leg, and he was actually being treated in Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences. The moment they found out, they abducted him. The police went into the hospital. They abducted him from the hospital. He was from Mandi Bahawuddin in a district in Punjab. Now, in order to understand the regression of the Pakistani society in this age, can you imagine even during the First World War and the Second World War, the army, the hospitals and the doctors had some sanctity. They would not hand over their patients to the police authorities for taking away. But he was taken away, and not only this man from the container top was taken away, the container man, his father, his brother, his one uncle, and his brother-in-law were also taken away. Then after a few days, they have handed him over to the KP Chief Minister, Ali Amin Gandapur, which actually helps in the public relations of the KP Chief Minister. And also the man has not been allowed, and his family has not been allowed to file a police report. The whole world has seen how he has been thrown. First they said it's a TikTok video, it's not a true video, it has been created by AI. Then they said it's totally fake, and now they have not allowed him to file the... You can imagine, you can imagine what's really happening over there. Secondly, many news stories, even when I look at a drop site story, an impression exists as if the firing has been done to stop the crowd from going somewhere. And this is the impression the Pakistani government is creating. A Pakistani, and we know it because we have spoken to so many people, but there is a Pakistani journalist by the name of Abdul Qadir, who in his vlog has documented that the firing took place at a time when most people were actually returning back from the D choke because there was no leadership at the D choke, because the PTI leaders were not going forward, they were not talking of anything. So the people were disappointed and they were going back. So the net bottom effect is that the firing by the army was done to create an impact, to break the back of these democracy protesters who are basically asking for the accountability of the February.
So I'll give you some background on what was banned and how it was organized. Islamabad, as you can see on this map, it is this dot. It is on northeast of Pakistan. I'll do some annotations here. So let's see if this works. Okay, anyway. So the PTI's plan was from different routes, Peshawar, Quetta, Multan, Lahore, to come to Islamabad and protest here, right in front of what is called in Islamabad red zone on D choke. So D choke is basically a roundabout right in front of the red zone. Red zone houses all the government building, the Supreme Court, the Parliament, and like basic government infrastructure. Most Pakistani political parties, when they want to protest in Islamabad, they go to D choke. It is a symbolic thing. You know, you're protesting right in front of Supreme Court, you're protesting right in front of the Parliament, telling the government that these are our grievances and these are our legitimate grievances and they must be listened to. And that has been every party's right. Like before this government, during Imran Khan's government, parties used to come here, they used to protest peacefully and they would go back. So there was never any issue. But this time, since the government and their military backers, they want to control the narrative, they want to control politics so much because Pakistan is right now virtually under a military dictatorship, they shut down all the streets. But if you go back here, all the roads leading up to Islamabad, these here, all of these major roads were shut down on 24th of November. And Pakistan's major motorways, this motorway leads from Lahore to Islamabad. This was shut down. Containers were put. Even in Islamabad, if you enter Islamabad here, there were lots of shipping containers that had been piled on top of each other. They were put in place to block the protesters. Can you see my mouse here? Yes. So this is the exact spot where you were pointing out where the man fell down. They had a 3-story container, one container on top of another container on top of another container, 3 shipping containers that would be at least 36 foot tall. This is where it was. This area, you see, this is a polyclinic hospital. This was the hospital where all the injured were taken and where the first dead bodies were taken, where we got the list from. So this is the scene, the background of the massacre. Yes, this is Jinnah Avenue. This is where all the protesters were gathering. Alima Khan, what she just told, they were around this area, which is far from D choke, which would be almost a mile from D choke from here. So I am trying to annotate this with. Yeah, this is the D choke basically. This is the roundabout right in front of red zone, and this is the D choke. So this is where everyone was. There was 3-story containers exactly here, and nobody could cross from this to this point. There were rangers deployed on top of these containers, and during the day, we have seen videos of this, and we have video proofs. SSG snipers were offloaded in this area and this area, and they climbed, they went up the roofs of these buildings. In some of these windows, were seen. During the day of 26th November, one Pakistan Army sniper was captured. His equipment was taken away from him. We have seen what equipment he had. He had a sniper gun. I think our next speaker will shed more light on what kind of equipment they had. But these are the buildings on both sides. These are the buildings where snipers were sitting. And then there were police here, and on these side, like on the ground. They were firing tear gas shells from both sides. And then there were rangers deployed also on both sides. The assault rifle fire came from this direction. Now, Rob's side, like Murtaza and Ryan's story says, a source in Pakistan Army reached out to them and told them how this operation was conducted. In the middle of the night, around 10 p.m. when it started, these positions, they started first firing tear gas shells. Before even that, before the operation started, they shut down all communication in this area. They had mobile jammers, what ISI calls electronic warfare equipment, EW equipment. They had this in the area, so they shut down all mobile communications. You stopped getting signals here. Internet was already shut down. And then they turned off all the street lights here. So this area was completely in the dark. There are offices here in these buildings. Those offices, some of these offices are newspaper offices. They were told to shut down, and journalists were told to leave these offices. So this was all empty at this time. Snipers were deployed in the roofs and on top of the buildings. Around 10 p.m., they started firing here. And when during this commotion, if anyone tried to be a hero or tried to be a bit more active, snipers would take them out. They were equipped with night vision capabilities. During this time, there was a drone with night vision capabilities going over this area and surveilling this area. They would see which protesters were most active and they would take them out. That means they would kill them. And the assault rifle firing killed so many people, we don't even know about them, or injured a lot of people. But the most important aspect of this plan was that the very next day, and this was ISI's job, the very next day, this whole area was tasked to clean up. They cleaned up, they took their water tankers there, they cleaned up this whole location. But there's a very important clue that if we really notice the next day, there is a video circulating on social media of the very next day. And we can see there are birds, vultures, crows, kites. These are like Pakistani birds that gather around carcasses and dead bodies. They were circling this area because there was so much blood and dead bodies around this area. But subsequently, this whole area was cleaned up. We would not have known about any of this if, for some journalists who worked really diligently in Pakistan. I would commend Matiullah Jan here because he went to this hospital. This is Polyclinic Hospital, because it was really easy for protesters to bring the injured here to the nearest hospital. Initially, the hospital shared a list of the injured and the list of the dead. But after journalists started going to these hospitals, the military swept in. They told the doctors not to share these lists. One journalist who was trying to investigate this, he was abducted. He was charged with terrorism and narcotics cases. Then subsequently, BBC did a story about this. There's a Norwegian newspaper, NEK, they did a story about this. The Guardian did a story about this. All of them are related to how the injured and the dead body, the number of the dead were hidden. The doctors were pressurized to hide the number of the dead bodies. They were not being given post-mortem certificates. So all of this has been very well documented. The only gap we had was how operation was conducted by the Pakistan military, and that gap has been filled by Ryan and Murtaza's reporting with Dropside News. Yes, I've seen the injured video. I haven't seen them, the army picking up the bodies, but I have seen the video of the man being injured. Yeah, who's describing the thing. According to the Dropside source, this was a part of the plan. Part of the plan was to kill these people or to shoot at these people, to injure as many as you can, because the main plan was, and this is the overarching theme of it, to put so much fear in the hearts of the people that they will never dare to do such a thing again, to communicate to the Pakistani public that the Pakistani military and the Pakistani government can be so ruthless that if they ever dare to come here again, they will be treated in the same way and there will be no consequences for the government. And this is what we're fighting against. So cleanup operation the very next day was a part of this plan. And that is what Dropside source has communicated to them.
Coming to November 26th, the government invoked Article 245 and gave control to the army to shoot at sight if necessary. These were unarmed protesters using their constitutional right to protest peacefully. Why I call it premeditated murder? Because our Interior Minister, Mr. Naqvi, the night before, he threatened, he said, and I'm quoting him, even now, if bullets are fired there for 5 minutes, after that, not a single person will be seen there. This is the Interior Minister of the country threatening you with live bullets. And I think that's a threat to murder. That's what it is. And then using machine guns and advanced weaponry on unarmed protesters, they forgot that the right to assembly and engage in peaceful protest is a universal right, and it is a foundation of human rights integral to any democracy in the world. Quoting you another person, Hassan Ayub, a journalist known for his affiliation with the establishment, he tweeted after the massacre, more than 100 militant vehicles have been destroyed, 100 heads, mind his language, 100 heads are torn open by the forces. And he says, happy independence. This guy is a spokesman practically for the military establishment, sits on TV every day and talks about them. Although this carnage was witnessed and videotaped by many, the government agencies next morning obviously claimed that no shots were fired and there were no fatalities. Since this was pre-planned, a huge cover-up is in place now. We've seen the BBC, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, and many other international outlets have reported through live witnesses. Patan Coalition 38, that's a network of 250 human rights organizations and civil society organizations, made this statement, and I'm quoting them: the use of brutal force, including lethal force, by the authorities severely breached the right to life and freedom of peaceful assembly and was thus unlawful and unjustified. Unquote. The crime scene was immediately cleaned up. As we've heard from many people, investigative journalists like Mr. Matiullah Jan were obviously abducted and held. A doctor reporting at The Guardian said, and I'm quoting again, all records of dead and injured have been confiscated by the government and we are not allowed to talk. Senior government officials are visiting the hospital to hide the records.